Welcome to Mission Evolution Radio Show with Gwilda Wiyaka, bringing together today's leading experts to uncover ever-deepening spiritual truths and the latest scientific developments in support of the evolution of humankind. For more information on Mission Evolution Radio with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit www.missionevolution.org. And now, here's the host of Mission Evolution, Miss Gwilda Wiyaka.
Do you ever feel like the days are just passing by with one very much like the last? Do you have purpose, or are you just wandering through life uninspired? What will your legacy be? Please, whatever you do, don't have a wasted life. Mission Evolution Radio TV show is coming to you around the world on the Exxon Broadcast Network, xzbn.net. With us this hour to discuss having an impactful life is Dr. Lance Secretan. Lance is a spiritual thought leader and authority on creating inspiring lives in organizations whose best-selling books, inspirational talks, and life-changing retreats have touched the hearts and minds of hundreds of thousands of people worldwide. He's the author of 24 books about inspiration, corporate culture, and leadership. A former CEO of Fortune 100 company, university professor, award-winning columnist, author, and outdoor athlete. He's received numerous teaching, writing, and humanitarian awards, including International Craig Award. He's former chairman of the Play It Forward Foundation. His website, secretan.com. Lance, thanks for joining us on Mission Evolution.
Great to be with you, Gwilda. Thank you.
It's wonderful having you back on. This is such a wonderful topic. So, what's your educational background?
Well, I have a PhD from the London School of Economics and a master's degree from the University of Southern California.
What drew you into being into inspiration versus economics?
Well, I was, as you said earlier, a CEO of a Fortune 100 company. Then I went to teach at university, and that was a big rude awakening for me because it gave me all these books to read, and I was teaching leadership and strategy. And the books I read did not resemble what I've been doing for 14 years. So I wrote my own book. That became a bestseller. People said, I want you to come and talk with us. So I did. And then pretty soon I couldn't handle my teaching load. So I just started writing and consulting.
That's quite the organic evolution there, isn't it?
Yeah, but it shows you how out of touch universities are with the real world in lots of ways. So this is an example.
Yes, and then people trying to graduate from there and then enter the real world, they have a challenge, don't they?
Indeed, because we're not teaching a modern version of what it takes to inspire and build great organizations, or for that matter, families, churches, schools, etc.
So, where does inspiration come from?
I think it comes from a mixture of things, but it comes from inside mostly. It's not something you do to someone. That's motivation. It's a different idea. That comes from fear. Inspiration comes from love. So you'll know that whatever it is that we love inspires us. I love flowers, for example, so they inspire me. I love poetry. That inspires me. I love certain music. That inspires me. I love certain people. They inspire me. So as soon as we fall in love with something, it inspires us. And by the way, the opposite is also true.
Opposite is true how?
Well, we fall in love with people that inspire us, and when they don't inspire us anymore, we go away.
Kind of fall out of love.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the same thing with, shall we say, a restaurant that you fall in love with, that you love, and you keep going because you love the restaurant. Then all of a sudden you get a terrible meal, really bad service. You fall out of love. You don't go there anymore.
Gotcha. So it seems like people are falling in love very rapidly anymore. It used to be you fall in love, you get married, that's it for life. And now it's like people are just kind of like flash in the pan. How's that affecting our inspiration?
Well, we know, I think now, there's tons of research to know. There's the Harvard study, which is the longest study ever in history. I think it's now 85 or 90 years old. It studied people, graduates from, I think, the 1939 class to see what makes them happy. And the one thing that stands out is a relationship. So if we want to be happy, relating with others is important. This, by the way, there's a tangential idea here. Competition, which I'm really newly interested in, is, I think, the opposite of inspiration. Because when we compete, effectively, I want you to lose. So that's not very inspiring for you. So we may get inspired temporarily from our win, but the cost of that is significant. And where we get our inspiration from is from a relationship that we trust. And if we're competing, we're not trusting.
Competing is also fear-based, isn't it? Like I'm not good enough unless I rally myself and compete with get better
Absolutely.
than the guy next to me.
Yes. And I contend it's the root of most of our problems. Look at what's happening in Israel and Gaza. Look what's happening in Ukraine and Russia. That's a competitive problem. We're competing for the same thing. And look what's happening in Congress and the Senate, same thing. It's a competition between the parties, not a competition for idealism and the best interests of the nation.
And that's basically what our politics have been based on for a long time, isn't it?
Right, absolutely. And wherever so to pursue this point, wherever you see competition, I think you'll see conflict and you'll see a lack of trust. And we are confusing motivation with inspiration. So when we win a trophy, for example, we're motivated, but we're not necessarily inspired because inspiration and motivation are different in the sense that one is short term and one is long term. Motivation is short term, inspiration is long term.
Is that also why we end up feeling kind of empty and going for the next and the next and the next competition to try to fill a hole?
Precisely. Yeah, the hole in the soul, as they say. So, what we want to try and do is collaborate more, and that brings us to a place of trust. You see, so if I trust you, I will find you inspiring, and I will love you.
How why have so many of us lost our inspiration at this point?
I think part of what we've been talking about, because the more we compete, the more we are hostile. I don't know about you, but I'm finding not only is there a polarization in politics, but it's disrespectful too. And so, what we're actually doing is the very opposite of inspiration. We are insulting and disrespecting those with whom we don't agree. That's true of racism, that's true of even religions that fight each other and so on. So, why we lost it, I think you're seeing very good examples. You may have perhaps seen, as I have, that competition starts very early. Parents teach it. It's also competitive in our junior academic systems. And then even more so, I forget the numbers, but I think only about 2 or 3% of applicants actually get into Harvard. That's competitive.
Hmm.
And so, we're in a world where we encourage this. Michael Jordan has made, if you can believe this number, $4 billion in
Goodness.
$4 billion. This is more than the gross national product of some countries. That's what we're doing with competition. He was a fine competitor, a great athlete, but I'm not sure it was worth $4 billion. And therefore, we've created a culture where we're rewarding competition in such a way that it's appealing to everybody, especially, by the way, people with little, because it's like winning the lottery.
And then there's the lottery. I mean, there's
Yeah,
more
true,
competition.
true.
Yeah. How can
Yes.
how can one tell that they've lost their inspiration? What's the symptoms there?
There is some great work that's been done at the University of British Columbia by a couple of psychologists where they've identified something called the dark triad personality. The dark triad personality is triad meaning three. So there are three things that evil people do. One is Machiavellianism, they try and manipulate other people. Two is narcissism, they are in love with themselves. And three, they're psychopaths, so they are devoid of empathy and compassion. Put those three things together, that is uninspiring behavior, and those are uninspiring people, and the effect on others is uninspiring also. So we can tell quickly if they show those characteristics, they're uninspiring.
And it seems like we have a lot more people in the world right now with those very characteristics. So,
No kidding.
how come we're breeding these?
Well, it's actually the way you get to the top in the corporate world, and for that matter, in academia, healthcare, politics. In other words, it's hard scrabble. It's very competitive, and whoever gets the the gold bar, as it were, and gets to be the winner. And then they're celebrated, and then they, in quotes, are successful.
In other words, the good guy loses.
Exactly.
Good
Yeah.
guys finish last.
Yes, and the winners step on the good guys.
Can we inspire ourselves by trying to show up in a good way versus the competition?
I think that's one half of it. Yes, certainly. I think the other half of it is to remove the things that are uninspiring. So, uninspiring friends who drain your energy, uninspiring work that is not satisfying to your soul, uh, environments that are ugly, language that is laced with warrior terms. It's quite amazing to me how much language we use that is laced with violent language. For example, you blow me away, or chocolate cake to die for, or let's destroy the competition. If you think about your language, you'll find yourself catching those words all the time. Well, biochemically, that's dangerous for our bodies.
Well, we're going to have to take a station break. On the other side, I'd like to look at that biochemically, what's going on
Okay,
there. Okay.
right.
Lance and I will return very shortly, so don't go away. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org. Another day, another 50 cents. With us this hour discussing inspiration is the author of Reawakening the Human Spirit, Finding the Spark, the Flame, and the Torch Within, Lance Secretan. Lance, we were just getting into careful of your words kind of thing.
Yeah.
And, we hear this in all of our, in a lot of our native cultures. They say, your words will travel to the next generation, all that stuff. And so many of the ancient cultures believe that words had extreme power. We went from there to think, it's just words. But now you're telling me that no, it's not just words. Would you continue with that, please?
Well, you can't override who we are inherently. We're actually quite primitive in some ways. You'll know that the flight or fight symptoms are prevalent and they're natural. So we can't override those easily. We can override them, but they're natural and they're instinctive. So what happens is if I say, Gwilda, I would kill for your hair, because I don't have any, and that would be a dream of mine. I mean this, of course, in a harmless way, and I mean it to be um, funny or humorous or friendly, but you hear it that way. But at the same time, at the subconscious level, there are hormones released in your body, cortisol, for example, adrenaline, when I use the word kill, because you've got 6,000 or 8,000 years of programming that causes you to associate that word with bad things. And so I am actually a manipulator of your biochemistry. So when I say to you, Wilda, I would kill for your hair, you can feel inside, can't you? The tension that happens when I use the word kill, especially if I shout the word kill, in other words, add aggression and violence to the tone. But if I say, I love your hair, a whole lot of different biochemicals occur, including oxytocin, which is known as the love hormone, and many others, dopamine and so on. So what we're actually doing is we are biochemical change makers. When we talk to each other, when we communicate, when we touch, tactile connection, all of those things create positive hormones. And when we use the language of war, or if we're aggressive, or we insult, we do the opposite. So effectively, we are pharmacies, and each of us, when we connect with each other, rearrange the chemistry in each other. That's what's happening to us. Now, you can go to a meeting, Gwilda, and you can have a very good meeting with someone, but they lace it with violent language, and you can leave the meeting and you can say to yourself, I wonder why I don't feel better. And you don't know why or what's happening because it's at the subconscious level, but you don't feel well.
And so if you're living with someone that's toxic and uses toxic language all the time, it's very eroding, isn't it?
Absolutely. And in that case, I think, well, you have a choice of living with it, but that's not going to go well, because that will cut some years off your life too. Because if you have too many stress hormones in your body for too long, that's going to cause inflammation and so on. So you will get sick as a result. So the remaining two choices are to change your partner, change their behavior, I mean, or change your partner, leave. So one of the two. But you can't live your life like that. And a lot of people try, and you probably know it doesn't work.
Let's talk about the other side of that. What do our words do to us? So if you're saying, I would kill for your hair, that makes me have a fight or flight response, whether I know it or
Right,
not. What does it do to
right.
the one that's delivered those words?
Same thing. But for them, it's probably unconscious because they don't even realize they're saying it. So many people, you'll hear it, I bet you, in the next 30 minutes, you'll hear it from somebody.
Almost.
Yeah, it just lives in our language. It's the way we are. So we're so subconsciously unaware of what we're doing that usually when I explain this to people, it's like an aha. They never even thought about the language that they're using.
Careful of your words. Does that translate to other languages? I know we have a lot of it in English. Is it also in our other modern languages?
Oh, yeah. And English has multiple problems that way because we have fairly limited words um, on the positive side. For example, we only have one word for love.
Hmm.
In Greek, there's 7 words for love. In Sanskrit, there's something like 28 or something. So we just have part of the Anglo-Saxon culture, which most of us have inherited, is problematic in that way because we just don't have the lexicon available to us for the use of right words. I can't subtly say to you, I love you, Gwilda, when I really mean I love you like a sister, or I love you like a friend, or I love you like another human being that lives on the same planet as I do. I don't mean I want to jump into bed with you. That's the connotation we typically, although I suppose I shouldn't say I don't want to because that would be rude, but you know what I'm saying. There's different ways of saying these things, and we need to choose carefully which way. If we spoke another language, we'd have more flexibility.
Um, if you're listening to someone that is speaking a language that you don't speak, does it still have the same effect?
I don't think so because the brain is not computing. But if a foreign speaker embraces you, for example, that's beyond the language barrier. There is, by the way,
Absolutely.
tone. There is some essence of this in tone, as I mentioned earlier. So you can say, I could say, I dream about your hair, but I could shout it and use a tone of violence, and it might be misheard by you subconsciously.
How can we move beyond this? I mean, this is in our language, this is in our culture, but how can we find inspiration in spite of being bombarded with this stuff on a daily basis?
Well, that's my life's work, and I've done a lot of work in this area. For example, I've been to the seats of power and talked to the heads of political parties, and I asked them to be more respectful and a little more elegant and graceful in their communications, and they basically laugh at me.
Hmm.
So, but it's the same thing in religion. I mean, what's happened to our religions where we do not accept anybody who isn't part of our tribe? I don't think any of the great founders of those religions, Christ, Muhammad, Confucius, Lao Tzu, I don't think any of those would agree to that. For Christ, it was always an acceptance of everyone, not a particular group. Anyway, I always joke with people, he didn't even know he was a Christian. So that's something we made up.
When we're being judgmental, does it have the same effect? Negatively, judgmental.
Yeah, yes. That's everybody is judgmental. There's no escaping this. There's even saints are judgmental. Um, we can't help it, but we can catch ourselves. We can be prepared for that and recognize that when we are judgmental, we are making someone else other and different. And the reality of life is there's only one thing. We're all connected. So when you do that, you're actually contradicting the natural nature of life.
And that's never a good idea.
Right.
Life is
Yeah.
bigger than we are.
Right. It never goes well. Yeah.
You have an interesting question in some of your materials. What percentage of the people would quit their job if they felt they had a choice?
The answer is 80%.
I'm sorry,
The answer is 80%.
80%. So we're all going to work spending 40 hours a week doing something we hate.
Correct. And if we won the lottery, you'd be out of there in a heartbeat. And you wouldn't necessarily do something that is work related. So I heard a speech the other day from it was a graduation speech by the president of Walmart. And one of the tips he was giving three tips. And one of them he said is only do work that you love. That, by the way, is a cornerstone of inspiration.
It
These
has to be,
12,
yeah.
yeah, these 12-year-olds that start things in garages, they're not doing it for the salary. They would never say, I'd quit if I could.
Yeah,
They love what they
exactly.
do. They're inspired by what they do, and amazing things happen. And frankly, remember, we spend $170 billion a year on leadership development and training. There are 240,000 books on Amazon about leadership, and yet it's broken everywhere. And why? Because we don't need to be led. I don't know about you, but I don't need a leader. I need an inspirer. That's
Well
what I'm
put.
looking for.
Well put. We're about out of time in this segment, but what impact does spending one's working hours doing something we don't like have on a person's life and health?
Now, it's damaging, isn't it? There's too many things that are side effects of that. Our relationships, for example, go south when we do that. Our stress levels, which is another subject we perhaps can talk about, because I think stress is a myth. We create stress. But a lot of people live with situations at work where they're stressed, too much work, unfair treatment, colleagues they don't get along with, a boss who's unreasonable, and so on. So much of this happens. How can that be good for us?
Well, even before you get to work, fighting the traffic will do it, right?
Sure, that's another scourge, which of course is why there's this big push not to go back to the office.
I think a lot of people felt isolated, but then a lot of people felt relieved in a way, didn't they, when COVID had us
Yes.
staying at home? So,
Well, it's an interesting thing, Gwilda. I've researched the term work. You know, the most recent time, or the first time it was ever used, was in the 1600s. If you think about it, before that, we didn't go to work. There wasn't anywhere to go to. Like if you were a blacksmith, it was in your backyard. So we didn't have factories, we didn't have offices. So we've invented this word work, and it's very recent. Now, look what's happened with the beginning of COVID. We're going back to where we were 400 years ago, right? We're
it
just
was
working
a
from home like we always used to. That's our natural place. Everything else is unnatural.
we spend all our energy putting energy into some place that isn't even our own. Well,
Yeah, and now
it
we're
is
going to wonder what to do with all those tall buildings downtown.
it is that magic moment for another station break. Lance and I will be right back to continue our discussion. So you stay right there. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org. Are you a leader or a follower? This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. With us discussing leadership is Lance Secretan. His website, secretan.com. Lance, what has happened to leadership today? You were saying that it's not doing so well. What's going on there?
Well, we're working with some very old ideas. Frankly, we haven't learned much in the last, let's say, 120 years. So think about Pavlov, think about B.F. Skinner, the behavioral scientist from the very beginning of the last century. And what they remember Pavlov did for us, he said to ring a bell and the dog salivates. Okay, well, now we use very sophisticated terminology and fancy theories and models and so on, but we're doing the same thing. And so fundamentally, human resource policy in corporations, leadership theory is all built on the principle that we reward good behavior and we punish bad behavior. It's as simple as we did with the dogs. We just are more sophisticated with people, and people are wearing out because I don't know about you, but I think the internet has accelerated the impact of this. So my day is full of people pushing me to buy something or switching my channel or whatever. I just feel like I'm being hustled all day long.
Yes, it comes through on your cell phone. I mean, there's no escaping it.
No, no,
And they're using
no.
the same techniques, aren't they? Guilting you into
Exactly,
doing something, um,
exactly.
punishing you verbally if you don't or if you think differently. Um,
It's systemic, Gwilda. It's so we talk about leadership, but it's also true in academia. Pass this exam or I'll fail you. Is it true in religion? Join my religion or you go to hell. Healthcare. follow this protocol or you'll get sick. Business, do what I say or I'll fire you. Parenting, do what I say or I'll punish you. I mean, it doesn't, everywhere we go, we have learned this. Politics, vote for me or the bad guys will get through. So it's all about fear on the one hand, motivation, and very rarely about love, which is inspiration.
Hmm. We're living in a very toxic world, aren't we? It sounds like.
Yes.
If we're talking, well, as we speak of this, it feels very stressful, which leads us back to talking about stress. You were about to introduce something about stress. You said there is no such thing. I'm feeling pretty stressed with what we're talking about.
Well, stress, depends what we mean by stress, but stress, I think, means for most people that they feel frazzled, uh, out of gas, burned out, probably tired, and so on. But there's also the immediate stress. So the example I use is you're on the freeway and some guy in front of you suddenly cuts you off or spins in front of you. And you get that feeling, right? It's sort of like an electric charge that goes through your body. Adrenaline is pumping through, and you feel very stressed. You think the guy's a maniac. So you roll the window down and you start screaming at him and tell him what an idiot he is, and your blood pressure goes up and so on. That's stress. Now, that was your choice. You chose to do that. You could have said, oh, I wonder if he's having a bad day. I'm really happy that I am not having a bad day. I'm having a good life. I'm going to continue enjoying it. You could have chosen that too. The circumstance didn't change, but your reaction did. So stress is actually a definition of how we react to situations. So if we choose to react positively or benignly to events that we're not happy about, stress goes away.
But
Simple as that.
it's very stressful to take the time to block your feelings, to hold them back, to make that choice. I mean, that's
We get
stressful.
we, we get used to it.
You
It's
used to it.
you know it's something we learn, but as Viktor Frankl said, we have power to control the gap between an event and our reaction, and
There is a
that's
gap
what.
there, isn't there?
Yes, there is. You have time, and it only takes a moment. After all, it didn't take them any moment to scream and yell at him. Why would it take any longer to do the opposite?
When you're living in a volatile situation, that's stressful. How do you work with that? In other words, your spouse is, you never know what you're going to get. They might be sweet one day and out to get you the next. That's stressful. Is there a way to deal with that within, or is it time to look at getting out?
I'm not a marriage counselor, so I don't know the answers to these things. I've been married for a very long time, 60 odd years, and I
Congratulations.
don't un- I don't understand that kind of situation because I don't think unless you marry somebody who's got mental health issues or something like that, or an addiction maybe, but outside of those extreme circumstances, assuming people are relatively normal, um, now it takes two to tango. So what are you doing that creates the problem that you're observing in the other person? It doesn't just happen. It happens because of a reaction. So what's the reaction to? Are they jealous? Are you pushing their buttons? What are you doing? And so ask yourself that question. Don't try and solve the other person's problem. Solve your own problem.
It's the only place we have control anyway, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and it's probably much more at root there than you think.
So if, say for instance, let's go back to the person that was cut you off in traffic and you get all mad
Yes,
and you're yelling at them. And you take that moment to make the choice to not go there with it, to say, well, maybe they're rushing their wife to the hospital. Who knows?
right, exactly. Yeah.
How long does it take to um, de-stress? Okay, so because you've had an adrenaline reaction, they probably scared you. Long does it take to de-stress once you start to have practice? Can you start to get out of the fight or flight quicker and quicker when you make that choice?
Yeah, I think that we've had a couple of examples, Gwilda, where we've been live or almost live, and then my mic doesn't work. Well, I could stress, couldn't I? Or I can simply say, okay, I got to fix that. It's no problem. And I'm with somebody who knows what they're doing. That's wonderful. So it's just a choice. I think the answer to your question is nanoseconds. It may take you a long time if you've never done it before, but if you're used to doing this and choose to do this, I just choose not to live with stress. I know the effects of stress. It's very bad for my body. I'm 85 years old. I'm an athlete. I'm healthy. And I take care of those things because that's what actually impacts how long we live and how healthy we are.
Really good advice, and yet we're living in an environment that kind of promotes the opposite.
Well, because, yes, follow the dollars.
Follow the dollars, isn't that the
Yeah.
truth? So, how can we broaden? This is one of yours. How can we broaden horizons through our choices?
How can we broaden our horizons through our choices? I think that everything is a choice. Everything. Even the worst situations in the world, somebody has chosen that situation. Someone has chosen to live in that place where I live. I have a home in Colorado and a home in Ontario, Canada. Both of those, coincidentally, I didn't choose this, but both of those are very high. I am not concerned about rising sea levels. I am concerned for everybody else, and that's a concern, but not for me because I am at 1,300 feet in Ontario and 10,000 feet in Colorado, and I'm pretty happy that I'm not on an ocean coast and so on. So, you want to live in Florida in a swampy area, fine, dandy, but you need to understand you're not going to be able to live there long and you won't be able to get insurance. So why would you go there? That's a choice. And thousands of people are migrating to Florida, to these coastal regions. And I have nothing against Florida. I just think it's a dopey thing to do when climate change is going to raise our sea levels. So it's a choice.
Well, denial sneaks in here. Okay.
It's not a river.
No, not it's not a river in Egypt. So, um, when we're in denial, what does that do to our choices? What does that do to our stress level? And what does that do to our ability to go in a different direction?
Well, I know you're not being interviewed here, but why are we in denial? I mean, if I have this guy cut me off in the traffic, am I going to deny that? I mean, that's reality. That's actually happened. I can pretend it didn't happen, I suppose. So what am I doing now? I'm hallucinating.
Well, there's this denial in the sense of, no, that didn't happen. It's not that bad. Um, um, it's his fault that I'm upset because he cut me off. That's also kind of a form of denial, projection,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. Yes.
So, does it come back down to owning what's going on?
Yes. What can I do that would be different so that this problem doesn't occur? I'll tell you, and probably all your listeners will turn off the program immediately after I say this. But some years ago, after 9/11, I was making a speech to 3,000 people, a very big conference, and I made the comment that America's behavior has played a role in what happened. People don't just get up in the morning, get on airplanes, and fly into tall buildings. That doesn't happen. It doesn't work that way. Something happened that pissed them off so much that they got so mad they were willing to die. What was that? And I'm not pointing a finger at anybody. I don't know what it was, but it didn't just happen. These things do not happen in isolation. So we have to look at ourselves and say, what do I own of this? How much of this issue is a problem? I'll give you another one that's current at the moment, the war in Ukraine. Russia thinks that NATO is pushing too aggressively towards their territory. And an impartial observer would say they're right. Why shouldn't we sit down and say to Russia, just a minute, what would look right for you? We can work this out. And a little compassion, a little equality in terms of we give a little, you give a little, we'll get there. Instead of killing literally what's going to amount to millions of people.
And isn't that been the question across the ages? We've been a
Yes,
warmongering species for as long
absolutely.
as we've been around. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, but it all starts where we started this conversation. Starts right in the Hat family. Even you don't do things as well as your brother does. Oh, okay, that's
Time
competition.
time to
Yeah.
compete. Well, it's time. Speaking of competing, it's time for another station break. Please stay with us as Lance and I continue to explore life purpose This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org. No one lives forever. What will you leave behind? This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. We're continuing our discussion with Lance Secretan. His website, secretan.com. Lance, how can we inspire ourselves to live an exceptional life?
I think by surrounding ourselves with inspiring people is one way. And we aren't discriminating enough, I think, when it comes to that. We should choose our friends carefully and our family, of course. Um, it's said, isn't it, that we are actually the sum of the 5 closest friends that we have.
Mm.
So we absorb, what they are, the best features of what they are. Most of the time, sometimes not best features, but most of the time, best features. And so that for me is very important. I choose to hang out with whom I want to be. I also want to remove, as I said earlier, toxic things out of my life. So, for example, I do own a TV now, but I haven't had a TV for about 40 years. So, and I watch it maybe twice a week, if that. I just know that watching the same blood and murder and car crashes and wars over and over and over is not doing me any favors. And I can pick up my news in writing more easily than that, without the visual horrors and all of the drama that goes on there. So that's another example. I think that surrounding ourselves with nature is another very important. We are part of nature. So this is our home. So when we're in a forest or field or in the ocean or on a beach, then we are connected to where we came from and who we are. And all native peoples know that, the sacredness of the wild. And that's what we've lost because we've concreted most of that over.
Well, I'm glad you brought up nature because I'm a nature buff, live out in the middle of it.
Right.
Um, and one things I love is watching. I put food out for the ravens and the wild turkeys and the fox and
Right.
I originally put it out for the ravens, but everybody else comes and dines. And I can look out there at any given time and see a wild turkey right next to a fox, right next to a raven, right next to a squirrel. No, occasionally there'll be a peck. That's my piece. But
Yeah.
they just peck enough to get them to go, move off and go find your own,
Right.
rather
Right.
than this vendetta that we see
Right.
happening in our world.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we could just emulate that a little bit more, wouldn't it be a wonderful thing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Or even if we were to follow any of the scriptures that all of the great faith leaders and philosophers have invited us to do, instead of some other format that we've chosen instead.
So, what's the largest factor leading to a wasted life?
Um, Not creating a dream, and then even if you have a dream, not doing what it takes to meet it, to realize the dream. Part of the work that I do is to help people and organizations create a dream, because most people and organizations in particular have a mission statement. And I don't know about you, but mission statements are boring, usually banal, and they're all the same. So I work a lot in healthcare, and I sent 3 CEOs of the very largest healthcare systems in America their mission statements, copy of their mission statements, except I shuffled them. And they didn't know if they got their own or not. They couldn't tell. None of them. These are people running multi-billion-dollar businesses, and they don't even know what their own mission statement is. So what's the point? Why would we put one together? Now, when you wake up in the morning and you say, I'm going to work for a company that has a dream, that's a whole different idea. Not only that, but I have a dream, and the company dream helps me achieve my dream. Now we're on an entirely different level. A dream is a core part of how we become inspired. Most people are not inspired because they don't have a dream.
There's the saying that without vision, the people perish. How does the vision compare with the dream?
I think it's the same thing, just nomenclature. But one of the things about the mission statement is that that is a really old term. By the way, like a lot of things, it came from the military. Most of the things we've learned about running businesses were designed by the military. You've heard of Mission Impossible. That's mission. What is the mission? The mission is to take over this city or invade this country. That's the mission. So mission has meant something for the military, but now it's been imported into the corporate world and it means something entirely different. And usually it means to be the best, the largest, most profitable, best customer service, that kind of stuff. But that's not a dream, because you asked, you made a comment earlier about legacy. Legacy is one of the things it is anyway, is the realization of your dream. So if I have a dream personally about my work, for example, what I want to accomplish in the world while I'm here, that will be my legacy.
I love the word legacy and I love the concept because we can
Hmm.
just stagger through life and then we get old and we look back and we go,
What
what did I
happened?
accomplish? What did I accomplish?
Right.
So
That's right.
I worked a 9 to 5 and then I retired and now what? You know,
Well, a
I
lot
had
of
all
people
these dreams
disappointed.
that we have all these
Right.
dreams that we set aside until they're stale and they don't inspire us anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
How can a person find their life purpose? Let's talk a little bit about life purpose because it's a big buzzword, but how can you figure out what your life purpose is?
I think this is going to be quite contrary in my response, but I don't think we need a life purpose. We need a dream. Now, maybe it's the same thing, maybe it isn't, I'm not sure. But if I have a dream, then that is my life purpose. And I
Can that
think we've got a lot of recent stuff about my why, that's a popular term, or purpose, which is also popular. I think it's overdone though, and I think we kind of pick up these ideas and we commercialize them to the point where they're not useful anymore. Another example of that is mindfulness. Mindfulness is a modern commercialized version of meditation, which is a sacred practice. And to put it into a corporate setting and say, if you're mindful and you practice mindfulness, you'll be more productive and you will achieve better results. That's not the point of meditation. So this is an example of where I think with purpose and so on, we've just commercialized an idea that doesn't do well when it's monetized.
can our dreams change and evolve?
Absolutely. Mine have. Yes,
And
absolutely.
is it important that they do?
Well, if you're dynamic and evolving, yes. I mean, if you're static, no, you'll have the same dream all your life. But maybe, if you're lucky, you'll accomplish a dream within your lifetime, in which case it's time for a new dream. Or the environment changes and the dream isn't relevant anymore. So you have a new dream. I had a dream a long time ago, 30 years ago or so, to live in Colorado because I'm a passionate skier. Now, I didn't have a home in Colorado. And I remember saying to my wife at the time, well, let's take a sabbatical. But a sabbatical turned into let's buy a house and let's live there for half the year. That's a dream. And so I accomplished that dream. So I need a new dream now. Now, that's a kind of self centered dream, but a dream to change the world, for example, and make the world a better place, that less violent and more inspiring, which is my current dream. That's maybe I'll never achieve that one, but I'll inch forward towards it every day in the work I do.
It's that time of the show and I need to ask you, Lance, what is your mission?
My mission is to help create a more loving and inspiring world.
Now that's dream
That's a dream.
and a
That's right.
beautiful one. How can we become more inspirational to others?
Well, some of the things we've talked about, I'll give you another little model to think about. We did some research some years ago. We want to know what makes people uninspiring. So, in other words, the opposite. Well, we don't like cowards. We don't like phony people. We don't like people who are selfish. We don't like people who lie. We don't like people who rule with fear and use fear. And we don't like idiots, incompetent people. So we said, okay, let's just do the opposite. It's pretty simple. A lot of this stuff is not technical or complicated. It's pretty simple. Stop doing the things that don't work. It's a good tip, right? So what's the opposite? The opposite is courage, authenticity, service, truthfulness, love, and effectiveness. If you take those 6 words, they are an acronym, CASTLE. And CASTLE, we call them the CASTLE principles: courage, authenticity, service, truthfulness, love, and effectiveness. So to answer your question, what can we do to make sure we're inspiring other people and being inspiring ourselves? We love people who are courageous. We love people who are authentic. We love people who serve others. We love people who tell the truth. We love people who are loving, and we love people who are effective. Do those 6 things, and you will be an inspiring person.
And you'll inspire yourself as well, I would suspect.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, you're inspiring because you're inspiring, which inspires other people. So it comes back to you. That's karma.
That's a nice definition of karma. I like that.
Mhm.
Instead of some horrible thing you did in a past life, please.
Right. Well, John Lennon said the love you give is equal to the love you get.
Yeah,
That's
bless his
karma.
heart. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're just about out of time altogether, but Lance, what's your vision for the future of leadership?
Well, I'm hoping we've been through several iterations of this. Over the last 100 years, some of the early scientists with their clipboards and so on, the Hawthorne studies and all that early work, that was about management. So the big thing at the time was about management, how to become a better manager. Then we thought, oh, it's actually about leadership, not management. There's a different thing, management and leadership. And then we said, oh, well, leadership really is about motivation, which is part of the conversation we had earlier. Now I think we've been there for a long time. That's probably 1950s, 60s. That's when that started. We're still there in that chunk. But where we could be going is to say, no, it isn't about any of those things. It's about inspiration. I tell you, I don't care which party it has the presidential candidate. I'm going to be voting for the one that's inspiring.
Well, unfortunately, we are out of time. Lance, thank you so much for joining us again and sharing these wonderful concepts.
Thanks.
Our guest this hour has been Lance Secretan. Lance is the author of 24 books, including Reawakening the Human Spirit, Finding the Spark, Flame, and Torch Within. To find out more about Lance, his website, secretan.com. This has been Mission Evolution with Gwilda Wiyaka. For more information or to enjoy past archived episodes, visit www.missionevolution.org. But be sure to join me right here next time as we share inspiring people, inspiring ideas, and tools to navigate our world.